What's up guys, Nathan here, and today I'm going to give you a simple strategy to beat our fishy friends at the poker table, the recreational players. Let's jump right into it. Alright guys, so what is this simple strategy that works so well against the recreational poker players, aka the fish? And this is over betting the turn and river, and I'm going to walk you through an example hand, by the way, step by step in today's video to help illustrate this all better for you. Now, I've discussed this in detail, especially in my first book, Crushing the Micro Stakes, that this has literally been one of the biggest quote-unquote secrets to my success in having created some of the highest winnings of all time, especially in online low stakes cash games. Really what this boils down to, guys, is just simply getting more value out of these players, getting in fact massive overwhelming value when you have a good hand. Guys, I've got many videos here on the channel. By the way, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss my new videos. I've got many videos talking about how it's pretty difficult to bluff the recreational players and how you really shouldn't be doing it very often. But we're going to talk about value hands today and how you absolutely smash them and stack them, quite frankly, in these situations. All right, so let's talk about a hand here. You raise up two red fours, pocket fours on the button, and a whale calls you in the big blind. Now, I'm not going to go heavy on the player types in this video. I've got a free poker cheat sheet, which will be the top link in the description below, where I break it all down for you. But the whale is one of my 5 major poker player types. This is the passive variety of the recreational players, the maniac being the aggressive one. So the whale is the one that plays, 50% of all hands, or sometimes even higher, and they typically just love to limp into the pot. They love to check and call and chase every single bad draw, never fold bottom pair. I think you guys have played against these players many times. That's the kind of player we're up against in this spot. So the flop comes down with a king of spades, 8 of hearts, and 3 of clubs. Whale checks to us. Remember, we're going to be in position. We're on the button here, whales in the big blind. What should you be doing in this situation? Well, guys, this is really just all about making the standard play here. For those of you guys who have been following my poker blog or watch these videos, or have read any of my books before, you know that I'm all about keeping things as simple as possible, especially against the recreational players. Guys, you do not want to be getting fancy versus these players. FPS, fancy play syndrome, is literally the death of so many careers, dreams, and bankrolls in this game, because people try to overcomplicate and overthink a very simple game, guys. Remember, we're talking about recreational players here. They're not thinking on any kind of high level, and so your trickery, your slow play that you saw, some famous poker pro do in some high stakes cash game is just going to go completely over the head of our fishy friend in this hand here, and you're just going to cost yourself money. So guys, we want to be just making the absolute most obvious standard play here, which is just to make a c-bet. I know we didn't hit anything on this board, but king 8-3 rainbow meaning 3 different suits, is an incredibly dry flop. There's literally no draws available at all. In fact, if you struggle with reading board textures like this, by the way, I just released my brand new Elite Poker Training University. I have an entire video on the flop, I think it's about 30 minutes long, where I just break down flop textures and how to read them versus various poker player types. 17 plus hours in total of advanced training, hundreds of example hands and cheat sheets. You can enroll right now. There'll be a link in the description below. But basically, guys, this is a perfect spot to be making a c-bet, aka continuation bet, in position. Remember, we're on the button here, so we're getting to act last. Because guys, even though we are technically bluffing in this situation, you need to remember even fish fold sometimes too. I've checked the numbers before in Poker Tracker with a lot of these recreational players. I'll have links for that, of course, in the description below as well. And even recreational players typically tend to fold on the flop at least 30% of the time or so. So since our c-bet size on the flop is typically only going to be about 50% of the pot or so, we can make a mathematical profit typically in these situations by just making a small bet. So we're going to assume though that the whale does call here, and the turn comes with our gin card, the 4 of spades. So what should you be doing in this situation? Well guys, this is where the entire heart of this strategy really starts unfolding. You need to understand that overbetting really is the way to get ahead in this spot. And we're going to assume that the whale checks to us on the turn here. It's typically what they do. They're passive players. So guys, I'm going to suggest that you go ahead and bet 1.25 times the pot here. Now, why do I choose that number? It's honestly, guys, it's a little bit arbitrary. You could bet 1.5 times the pot. You could bet just pot. But I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from here. The vast majority of the advice out there that you'll see in books, training courses, even in YouTube videos like this from the so-called poker experts and all the gurus out there are just going to have you bet, 50% of the pot again, something like that. And guys, the biggest problem with this strategy is that you can't win a big pot, guys, especially against calling stations like this if you don't build it for them. They're not going to check raise you. And honestly, one of the biggest reasons why I was able to win so much more than anybody else in small stakes cash games online is because I was going directly against the standard advice and often using overbets in a situation like this. So for example, the pot's $100, bet $125 here. You don't need to bet $50 just because that's the GTO strategy or something. Guys, using game theory optimal type thinking versus players like this in low stakes games honestly is really going to hurt your results in these games. You only want to be using that stuff typically against good players in higher stakes games. Now, I don't have enough time in this video to go into depth on GTO, game theory optimal poker strategy, but I will say that versus lower level thinking players like this who just play the game as a hobby, especially in low stakes, you just do not need to be balancing anything against these kind of players, guys. They're not thinking about your ranges in this situation. They're thinking about what their own hand is. Is it pretty to them? And if they like it, they're going to call. And remember, the flop here was just a king 8-3. It's the driest flop on earth. This player basically, when they call on the flop, they probably have a king a decent amount of the time. What do bad players do? They never fold top pair. They don't even fold middle pair. If this player's got ace-8, this player's got 8-7, they're not folding, guys. So you want to make them pay in this situation. And the same thing goes for the river here. If the river comes with, literally any card in the deck. I mean, remember, we have a set here. We literally have an unbeatable hand. Often I'm just going to overbet shove all in these situations. Guys, like I said, this simple strategy is how I was able to create some of the highest winnings of all time online, making tens of thousands of dollars in the lowest stakes games. I've talked about that in detail for over 10 years on my poker blog before, but the bottom line here, guys, is creativity is what is going to get you the most success at the poker tables. I just want to be clear that, if you use some of these strategies, you're probably going to get laughed at. You're probably going to be called some names. I got called all sorts of stuff early on. Oh, look at this stupid fish. He's, why is he always betting so much? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, on the forums, Reddit, whatever, he's talking smack. But once they started seeing my results in these poker games, and then I wrote a book on it as well, my first one, Crushing the Micro Stakes, all of a sudden I started seeing everyone copying me in these small stakes games using this overbetting strategy because they started realizing, oh, maybe he's onto something. Maybe this thing actually works. If you take anything from this video, guys, is to always be thinking for yourself at the poker table. While I do have suggestions in this video for plays that I think are good and some plays that I don't think are so good, ultimately you need to decide yourself in the heat of the moment versus this specific poker player type on this specific board texture. What play makes the most sense for you to maximize your winnings? Do not subscribe to cookie cutter, one size fits all strategies in poker versus recreational players. You often want to be using heavily exploitative strategies like this overbetting strategy that I discussed in this video, and that will often yield the most success. Like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. And once again, if you want to know my complete strategy for smashing the small and mid stakes games, make sure you grab a copy of my free poker cheat sheet. That'll be the top link in the description below. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. All the best at the poker tables. Unless you're on mine, I will catch you next time.